So this is part 3 in our lecture on chapter 39 for unit 5 on plant physiology. And we left off on light receptors. So just to review that, we have two major classes of light receptors. We have the blue light, which are the photoreceptors, and we have the red light, which are the phytochrome photoreceptors. And the phytochromes can exist in two different isomer forms that can actually switch from one form to the other depending on the wavelength available. And phytochromes are responsible for the circadian rhythms, which are the 24-hour cycles that plants use. And these really control some of the daily variations that occur in plant behavior and also seasonal variations such as flowering. So plants are going to want to flower at the same time so that there can be cross-pollination occurring. And so part of what's going to help that to occur is phytochrome action. The second type, the blue light photoreceptors, are involved in controlling hypocaudal elongation in the opening and closing of stomates and for phototropism. And just as a reminder, the hypocaudal area is during a embryonic plant's development. It's the area of the plant just below the baby leaves. That's where we find the hypocaudal elongation occurring. So many plant processes vary during the day in response to light and temperature changes. For example, many legumes, like beans, lower their leaves in the evening and then raise them up in the morning. So even when they're kept under constant light or dark conditions, they'll still have this circadian rhythm. Um, so there is a biological clock that seems to be set. Phytochromes mark sunrise and sunset, providing the biological clock with environmental cues. A photoperiod is defined as the relative length of night and day. So the photoperiod acts as an environmental stimulus that plants are going to use most often to detect the time of the year as well, so the seasonal changes that we see in plants. Photoperiodism is a physiological response to a photoperiod. So, photoperiodism is involved in the control of flowering, as I referred to that at the beginning of this section. Some processes, like flowering, require a certain photoperiod, which is a length of daylight or a length of actually dark. Plants that flower when the light period is shorter than a critical length are called short day plants. And plants that flower when we have a light period that's longer than a certain number of hours are called long day plants. And then we also have day neutral plants where the flowering is controlled by the plant maturity, not by the length of a photoperiod. So this can be kind of confusing, the short day versus long day plants. But really, what is most important and was discovered in the 1940s was that it's not really the length of day that matters so much as the length of night. So they discovered that flowering and other responses to a photoperiod are actually controlled by the length of darkness, not by the day's length. So first of all, short day plants require a period of continuous darkness exceeding a critical measure in order to flower. So early spring or fall flowering will occur with a short day plant. Sometimes, so the other way to look at this, if it has a short day, that means it has a long night. So you can think of a short day plant as a long night plant. It needs a long period of darkness in order for there to be flowering. So short day plants are governed and controlled by whether the critical night length has been met. So there's a minimum number of dark hours that are needed in order for flowering to occur. In contrast, we have long day plants, and these flower only if there's a period of continuous darkness that is shorter than a critical value. So these are flowers that are going to show up in late spring or early summer. So these are considered the short night plants. Long day means short night. Long day plants are governed by whether the critical night length has a maximum number of hours of darkness. So again, long day plants need to not have an excess number of hours of darkness. So there's a maximum number that they can't go over in terms of darkness in order for flowering to occur. And then the last group again are those day neutral plants that have no length of continual darkness needed for flowering. They are again relying just on the maturity of the plant. So I'm going to show you an animation from some site online that helps explain this process of short day and long day plants and how it occurs. So this animation is going to be using this cocklebur plant, which is a short day plant.
The cocklebur, Xanthium strumarium, is a short day plant that begins to flower in the late summer and fall when day length no longer exceeds 15 hours. In experiments by Carl Hamner and James Bonner, cocklebur plants were grown continuously on a 16-hour light, 8-hour dark cycle. Under these conditions, the plants remained in a vegetative, non-flowering state indefinitely. Reducing the photo period by just 1 hour produced plants that flowered abundantly. Do these results allow you to distinguish which factor is important in flowering, the length of darkness or light? Click on the correct answer.
Okay, so you guys should know that these results actually don't tell you which one it is. You can't really tell.
Hamner and Bonner also experimented with photo periods that were not on a 24-hour cycle, but extended to 48-hour cycles. In the new treatment, plants received light during the first 16 hours, followed by a 32-hour dark period. Plants flowered under these conditions. Other plants received treatments on 12-hour cycles, with 4 hours of light followed by 8 hours of darkness. Plants did not flower under these conditions. What can you conclude from these results? Click on the correct answer.
Okay, take a minute to try and figure this out. But what you should be seeing is that what these results show you, that it's not the amount of short daylight, but it's actually the amount of long nighttime. So that means a dark period of 9 hours or more is sufficient to trigger flowering. And I'm trouble starting this up.
Hamner and Bonner's experiments pointed to the length of darkness as important in flowering in cocklebur, with 9 hours as the critical length. To test whether a continuous 9 hours is important, they interrupted the dark period with 1 minute of illumination. This treatment resulted in no flowering. The investigators determined that short day and long day plants had a timing mechanism that measures the length of a continuous dark period. With this in mind, predict whether each of these conditions results in flowering. Drag flowering and no flowering tags to the appropriate positions in the table.
Okay, see if you can figure this out. So pause the video, and then I'll have this set for you so you can check your answers. Okay, so from here you can see that again, to have flowering occur for a short day plant, you have to have the long period of darkness that's not interrupted. So this is the only one that would result in flowering. Whereas what we're going to see is long day plants are the opposite, where they cannot exceed a certain amount of darkness. So if it's here, it's a short amount. If it's here, it's a short amount. And even if we break it up, we can have flowering.
The nature of this timing mechanism has been partially revealed and involves a pigment called phytochrome. Phytochrome exists in two forms, a PR form and a PFR form, which refer to red light absorbing and far red light absorbing forms. Red light converts PR, which is inactive, into PFR, the biologically active form. In turn, far red light converts PFR back into PR. PFR also steadily reverts back to the PR form at night. Some of the PFR molecules also decay. Sunlight contains more red than far red light. As night begins, phytochrome is almost all in the PFR form. Over a period of several hours in the dark, these molecules begin to convert back to PR or to break down. Depending on the length of darkness, only some of the PFR remains. If a flash of red light interrupts the long night, the phytochrome molecules reset themselves, converting from PR back into PFR. Night interruptions have opposite effects in short day and long day plants. In short day plants, PFR inhibits flowering. In long day plants, it promotes flowering. Determine how the series of light flashes would affect flowering in short day and long day plants. Drag flowering and no flowering tags to the appropriate positions in the table.
So again, pause this and see if you can figure this out. And remember that the PFR inhibits flowering in short day plants, so that means they like the red light, and the PFR promotes flowering in long day plants. So studying the pattern here, notice how, again, this goes back to our original definition here of a short day plant. It has a long period of darkness in order to have flowering, whereas a long day plant is not going to flower in this situation. But in this situation here, where we break up the darkness, we're going to end up with flowering occurring with a long day plant. But without that minimum critical period of darkness, then there's no flowering occurring with the short day plant. And essentially what that comes down to is this red light in the red version of the phytochrome that we were talking about before. So here you can see if there's red light, then there is going to be no flowering. But if there's red light, there will be flowering. And red light, again, is more concentrated when we have light. When we have far red light, we will have flowering of the short day plant, but not of the long day plant. And then the pattern continues here. If you end the session, so what this is showing you here is that we have a burst of red, and then we have a burst of far red, and it's the second burst that actually determines what's going to happen. So in this case, it's going to end up with no flowering for the long day plant, just as in this case here, but there will be flowering of the short day plant, just as there was in this case here. But if we have red, then far red, and then red, we're ending up with the red, which is what the long day plant likes, so it's going to end up with flowering. And in this case, we're ending up with far red, so we have no flowering with the long day, but we do have it with the short day. So again, just pause this and make sure you can understand the pattern, and just memorize the association of the two.